What is up, guys? DT Ninja here to give you guys my RuroKen Hokkaido Arc Chapter 23 review. Yes, guys, as promised, this is my review where I share things that I noticed throughout the chapter, as well as some color scans. But there will be a discussion that's a separate video because I like to talk a lot, and the discussion will be separate. So that will be probably in a few days. When all the color scans are finished. But I will be sharing a couple of them today. So let's get to the chapter. As you guys know, RuroKen's Hokkaido Arc, Chapter 23, the special magazine celebrating 25th year anniversary. So this review will be just like Chapter 1's review, where I actually show the magazine, where you guys can actually see the chapter of the manga. So yeah, so pretty cool. You got Batosai and Kenshin on the cover. Let's get to the chapter. Okay, so the opening page. You guys can see right here, the opening page. You got, Sano, Kenshin, and the others, and they're surrounded by blades here. You guys can see all these blades surrounding them, and you see all the townspeople actually wielding these blades, which is quite interesting. Now, if you look in the center, there's actually a group of people that are fighting each other. Now, this is a very common thing throughout Otaru's town, and this is, an everyday occurrence, apparently, because these guys have swords as if it's no big deal. Like, this is an everyday thing. So the fact that Kenshin walks into town and just gets swords surrounding them just shows that even outsiders, can be looked at as enemies here. But these are the main people that are fighting are the ones that they're afraid of, but the outsiders just heightens that fear. So anyways, pretty cool opening page. I had it colored if you guys saw it in the opening, so yeah, it's pretty cool. Alright, the next page. The next page shows Kenshin, and he's like, what in the world is going on here in Otaru? So he says, what's going on here in Otaru? You actually see, like, old, elderly people. You see young children. And look at all their faces. They're all, really afraid. Even the elderly, the younger. It's pretty much got all ages here. And then you got the title page here. This kind of gives you a look at Otaru and its, industry. So this is like the fishing industry here in the port. So it shows like the fishermen and how they catch fish and how they produce it. And these are like the items that they sell throughout. So it's a very booming industry. The title of the chapter is called Gato Sword, and the Japanese title is Gato to Oe. So, that means follow the Gato Sword. Now, when I translated it, literally it means, follow the Polonia sword. Now, I translated that because one of the kanji in Gato is actually Polonia. Now, Polonia, as you guys know, is that rare kind of plant. It's almost like a flower. And I can show you here. Hang on a second. Yeah, here. It's this one right here. And basically, it's supposedly kind of an imperial thing. So, the whole plant is actually supposed to have, a phoenix perching on the actual tree, the plant. So it's a very specific thing. And this is a seal of the government, the Japanese government, and also was used in the Toyotomi clan. So that is the name of the chapter. Okay, let's go back to... And I just call it Gato because that's what the Japanese said. It's better to keep it Japanese sometimes. Like Jupon Gatana, we don't actually say the 10 swords, we say Jupon Gatana. So, okay, the next page, you get, this is in the center of that place where all the swords are. You got the two groups that are fighting. We saw this in the last chapter. They're basically butting heads here. Ashitaro steps in and says, calm down, guys, stop it. Which is very interesting because Kenshin's like, whoa, he's kind of, taking the initiative here. He's kind of changing. He thinks he's doing something good, and then the next page, you see Ashitaro yelling at them. He's like, you think you can just bump heads? You think that's cool? He's like, that's just plain stupid. And then you got Kenshin here in the Oro. And then, of course, they're like, you want to fight, brat? And he's like, bring it on. And you can see Asahi trying to hold him back here. And then you got Aran here basically apologizing to Kenshin. And then Kenshin's like, this one will use the Sakabato. And, of course, we see Sano, who steps in and says, no, these are small fry. This is a job. I promised that I would take care of them. So you get to see Sano step in here. Pretty cool. Okay, now, Sano basically provokes them, and the guy tries to attack him. And, of course, we see what happens. Sano basically snaps his sword in half, right? See Sano snapping his sword in half. And then he's like, what a dull blade. I didn't even use the Futai no Kiwami. The Futai no Kiwami. And then you see him smash him in the head. And he says, let this be a warning to everyone who tries to get in my way. And then we move on. And you see him flying. And he goes, crashes into it. And everyone is just like, what? Oh my gosh, this guy's crazy. And then, of course, he's kind of giving another warning. What's really funny here is that even though Ashitaro provoked him, isn't Sano doing the same thing? Like, he's basically egging them on. Come on, come on. But he says, get out of here. And he's even saying, throw away your swords, kids. And he's like scaring the children here. You can see it right here. And of course, Asahi is like, that's just awful, scaring children. And then you get this right here. Kenshin looks at the blade. And this is very important because the blade is the whole thing in this chapter. It's about the Gato sword. And this is the blade that refers to the Gato sword. So, moving on, you got the officers coming. And then you go to the county office here. And they talk about... the official, they meet the official, the county official, the government official, and he talks about how the Kabato prison assault, after it, they kind of ran rampant. They hid their identities, and they found their way to Otaru. And you can see it right here. There's the mention of Kabato prison, and you can see the map here that shows Otaru and Kabato prison, and they're very close to each other. You guys can see it right there. So they could be the prisoners, and he believes they are because this is the time where the swords starting showing up in mass. So this is where he talks about the swords that were being introduced and being sold everywhere. And then he says that there's a rumor going around that the origin behind the sword is from a man named Gato, and that's why it's called the Gato To, which is the Gato sword. Now, what's interesting about this is that this character in the middle, and by the way, that's the Polonia that I was talking about. That character literally means Kiri. I'm sorry, not Kiri. Miyabi. So it's a name. It's a family name, Miyabi. But when you combine it with Polonia, this is the Kiri that I was talking about. This is Polonia when you translate it, and then of course this is sword. So Polonia's sword, and then of course you have this one here. So when you combine the two of them, the beginning, Miyabi, it could be Miyabi's sword as well, but we don't know if that's his name or not. We just go by what it says, which is Gato. But it's interesting because the middle does translate as Miyabi. As one character, it transfers as Miyabi. which means graceful, by the way. It means graceful, virtuous. So it's kind of like elegance, graceful. But Miyabi is also a family name. So there's two possible translations here. And then, of course, you see him talking about how every day there's incidents, and now everyone has a sword. So it's a big problem. Sano then talks about how the Wild Wild West in America has guns, and it's the same thing. Not everyone can, the law cannot, take care of every problem there is. So, it's like an outlaw paradise. He talks about how it's an outlaw paradise. Kenshin then explains that this is, kind of a problem, and he wishes that people would just throw away their weapons. Sano's being realistic. He says, not everyone's like you. Not everyone has a kind heart, and that's just impossible. So, pretty cool. I love the fact that Sano talked about the Wild Wild West. I even made a meme, which I want to share here. So take a look. Alright guys, so this is my interpretation of what Sano would have done if, he walked into a saloon. By the way, that's a famous movie by Clint Eastwood. Okay, and then he goes on to talk about the actual gato sword itself, how it's created, the manufacturing process. And it also says that these are mass-developed swords, so they're not strong, they're not, wielded, they're not created like, Shaku Arai's sword, one of the greatest swordsmen, one of the greatest swordsmiths. This is a very cheap sword, but it's very easy to distribute, it's very easy to mass produce. So that was a big thing. And Kenshin says, though they're weak swords, it's a very big problem, because if they go throughout the whole country, we could have a serious problem. And Sano's like, yeah, we can't let this slide by. And then Sano basically says, kids, you three idiots, you guys are going to help us out too. And of course they agree. You have the little grins on their faces. I really like the three idiots. I like Asahi, Arun, and Ashitaro. They're great. They do have their own agenda, though. They want to make money, and we will see that in this chapter. Okay, so Sano goes off and tries to find the location of the gato sword, right? And tries to find the origin, the person behind it, which is the man gato, supposedly. And like I said, it could be Miyabi as well, because the character on the sword literally means Miyabi. But together with sword, it comes out as gato. But then Sano goes back to the guy who he beat up. You can see right there. And he basically says, where did you get this? And it leads them on a chase. So they're basically trying to track down the sword and where they got it. So you got a swordsmith here. You got a loan shark, a carpenter, a gambler. And what's interesting about the gambler here is he mentions a geisha, but it's not that. The gambler actually is one that is the Yakuza, supposedly. So that was something that if you're reading the chapter at the bottom, I left a note of, that they basically became the Yakuza. And then the whole chase leads them back to the official, and the official basically says, you're looking for gato sword? Well, are you looking for those kind of swords? Well, I can help you out with any type of sword you're looking for, which is interesting because it seems like they went around in a circle, right? And you can see the look on Sano and Kenshin's face, like, what the hell? This guy's dirty, this guy's kind of corrupt, he's selling swords on the side. I mean, he's a government official, he shouldn't be doing that, right? And so Sano's like, we're gonna have to go back to the place, where you arrested these guys, and they go back to the same place. You guys can see Kenshin's face right here. They go back to the same place, but if you look at page 164 in this book, and 160, they're the same. So look at this scene, and then look at 160. We'll go back to 160 here. And they're the same exact scene. The only difference is that this guy is covered with text, but it's the same exact scene. You can even see his clothes are the same. There's one reaction that's different, but they're pretty much the same. And I've seen Watsuki do this before. He used the same scene. It's kind of like a comedic type thing. You can see it's the same scene. So then it goes back to the official, and he's talking about, you know, how they're widely used. The swords are being sold. They're rampant at high prices. And then the very end, towards the chapter, you got the actual fighting in the town, in the center of town, and then you got all the police officers trying to break it up, and then you got Kenshin and Sano there, and they are basically gonna have to try to stop it. So that's when things start getting interesting. And then Kenshin has inner monologue here. He says that there's a weakness. If we want to expose this guy Gato, supposedly his weakness, we gotta handle this situation differently. We can't just jump in there thinking that this is an ordinary guy. So it's kind of like a strategic thing. And then it shows all the Gato swords here, and in the center you have the man. Supposedly his name is Gato, but it also could be Miyabi, as I explained. But really cool. You also see him shown at the end of chapter 21. So if you want to check out chapter 21, he's shown in that chapter. Okay, things elsewhere. On the port in Otaru, you got the children. You can see right here. I think I missed one. You got the children, and they are. You can see Otaru's port here. They're the fishermen, so they're working for fishermen. And we learned that Kenshin told them to look for clues for the Gato sword. So we don't know what's happened. It's been a week. We don't know if that week kind of went backwards and they're just going, but they're showing that they got a job, and here they are with the baskets. They're carrying fish, and they said, let's make some money. So they got their wish that, you know, from when they first explained that this is the city of money. And of course, look at their eyes light up with the dollar signs. They're like, oh my gosh, we're finally going to get money. Now, what's interesting about this is it's not like we're thinking like rich, but this is just like so they can eat food, especially Ashitaro. All of them, I think, just want to eat delicious food, but they want to make money too. You know, they want to do stuff. So you see them running here at the end. And that's pretty much the chapter, guys. So those are the things that I noticed. Just a quick look at the chapter. One thing that I want to mention again is that Gato guy, his name could be Miyabi, as I said before. And the reason is because the actual seal character literally says Miyabi. And in Japanese, it means, when you translate it, it means graceful or elegance. So that's one thing. Another thing, the actual Polonia. Let me show you the seal again. Okay, the actual seal on the Polonia, the Polonia is actually the plant, right? But if you look at like the branches, if you actually look at the real Polonia, the one that actually is the government seal, the one that was the Toyotomi clan, it's actually 7 branches. So you can see if you count, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 here. And then there's 3 here. Well, in the real Polonia, there's 7, and then there's 5 and 5. This one has 3, 3, and 5. So technically, it's not the original Polonia, but as I stated before, this kanji here for Kiri, that literally means Polonia. So I have a feeling that that is Polonia. But anyways, I wanted to point that out. Just a slight change in difference. But yeah, that's pretty much the chapter, guys. Things that I noticed throughout the chapter, reviewing basically the sword. The sword itself is very dull, right? The sword itself is very dull, so it breaks very easily. It's very easy to make. It's very easy to make and mass produce. Another thing, the townspeople, the people who just live in Otaru, they all need swords. They all require swords because of fear of the fights. And towards the end of the chapter, we see that fear. We see that fear, this whole fighting here, and you can see the police officers are having a hard time breaking up all the fighting, especially since they're using swords. So, yeah, that's the fear. And they have to carry them around because of that, and not only just regular people, but children as well. And that's a serious problem, as Kenshin mentions. So, you got the dull sword, you got the strong man supposedly behind the sword, which is kind of contradictory, right? You got a really strong blade, or I'm sorry, you got a really weak blade. Obviously, you see Sano smash it with his bare fist without even using the Futai no Kiwami. And then you got like a strong figure behind it. And you saw that in the chapter where Kenshin says he must be a very powerful or strong, opponent. Maybe he's not even a swordsman, but he's just a powerful figure. So that's my feeling on that. But that's interesting because it kind of contradicts itself. You'd think if they were strong blades, there'd be a strong figure behind it, the origin. But actually, it's the opposite. Even though it's, weak, it kind of takes that away from the man itself. Maybe it's kind of to hide his strength, which is interesting to me. You got the kids. They're doing a job. Maybe they're gonna find something on the Gato sword. Maybe they'll be confronted with someone, because obviously they're outsiders too, and they managed to get a job. So it's not just in town. It might happen with them as well. So maybe we'll get something from them. Very interesting stuff. I really liked this chapter. It was funny too. There were some great scenes. Sano scaring the children. Kenshin going around in a circle, basically confused by the distribution channel. It was pretty good. I do wish that we got more from Saito's side and Sapporo, because I have a feeling his side, they're going to come head-to-head with the Kinkaku Heki, because Sapporo is a pretty big city. It's a pretty big city in Hokkaido. So, yeah, Otaru is more for resources and the port, and you can see it's very it's full of wealth because of the, it said the trade from Russia. There's a lot of, industry, in Otaru. So very interesting stuff. So I hope in this next chapter, chapter 24, that we get something along the lines with Saito's side and Sapporo and Nagakura. So we get, maybe they find out the next combat field experiment. They actually come face to face with a member of Kinkaku Heki. They have a conflict there. Maybe we get something from Kaoru's father. Like maybe he's like covered in a hood or something like that, and he turns around and we see his face. That'd be freaking crazy, because a lot of the Kinkaku Heki members have hoods. So, but anyways, that would be really interesting to see where he is. What he's doing, what he's planning, if he realizes that people are after him. So, very interesting stuff. Yeah, so that's pretty much it, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed my review. There will be a discussion coming. Chapter 24 will be coming tomorrow. So, Chapter 24 comes out in Japan tomorrow. The issue of SQ comes out on Saturday, so it's 2 days earlier than normal. So yeah, look forward to that, guys, and I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you guys in the next one.